So I thought about taking a break from just sort of modeling out a door or what have you, and I'm thinking about teaching you a little bit about Substance Designer. We're going to go ahead and make this tiled backsplash. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and fire up Substance Designer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. A little bit about the interface here. This is where the graph is, where everything is set up. So if you go in here and you go to File, New Substance, um, all the different options are in here, right? Depending on what you're creating it for. And I'll grab 2018 later, but this is a physically based. We're going to go with metallic roughness, which is what I like to use for Unity. And it includes all of these different materials. This is pretty much all I need. I want to go a little bit higher for the backslash at 1024 by 1024. And I'm going to name this, let's say white tile uh, backsplash. Let's make sure. Okay, and I'm going to hit OK. And right off the bat, it gives you these default nodes. And then down here is the 3D viewer of how it's going to look in the scene. And then whenever we select on one of these, if we double click it, it'll actually load it up inside of here. Off to the side here are the parameters for it, right? So if I double click it, you'll notice it'll give me all the different attributes. Now in here is where we can see our different nodes and we can add nodes. Down here is again, it's more filters and more images and so forth, but we're going to get into all that stuff in a second. So let's start looking at our base color here. So I'm going to hit spacebar and I'm going to just type in uniform color, which is this guy right here. And notice if I connect this, it adds a black sheen. If I go in here and I change it to grayscale and I bring it all the way to white, my image right off the bat is already starting to look like the reflections of the tile in this image. The thing is, we don't have this pattern yet, and we also don't have the mortar or the height information, so let's go ahead and work on that right now. Alright, so I'm going to zoom out here. I'm going to hit spacebar again, and I'm going to type in shape. What's really cool about this shape node is embedded within it, we get a variety of different types of shapes. So you can see here under pattern here, they have square. We're going to go with a brick pattern. And that's essentially what this image is. It looks like a series of bricks that are sort of stacked. Alright, so let's go ahead and make a sort of a pretty generic brick shape. So you can see here under pixel size, we can adjust our width, our height. If we come down here, you can see there's tiling, there's scale. So if we scale this down a little bit, and we play with our pattern specific, we can get a nice bevel around the edge. And if I adjust the size of mine, something like this, I can actually kind of start by making that first tiled brick. So something like this. There's a little problem with pattern specific in that what it's really doing is it's blurring it unevenly. Do you see that out on the sides? So what we want to do is we're going to hit spacebar and we're going to grab a bevel from here. And what this bevel node will do is it'll add a nice little bevel around the edge of this image uniformly. So let's go ahead and adjust the bevel's distance a little bit. So it gives us a little bit of a curve, but it's not anything insane, right? So when it's popping off the wall, it looks kind of nice. The next thing I want to do is adjust we want to make this tiled so it looks like actual bricks. I'm going to hit spacebar and I'm going to type in tile generator. Now you see there's a bunch of them. There's one for color, one for random, and then there's one for random color. These are cool if you're making like interesting brick, and maybe I'll use a video on how to do that later. Our bricks are essentially white, so I don't need the edit information of the color channel, so I'm just going to go with the first one, which is great for grayscale. And you can see there's a height and a normal adjustment here. So let's connect this here. And then inside of here, when we scroll down, you'll see there's pattern, pattern type brick. We want to do image input, and that's going to take into account our how it looks from here. So that's this guy right here. So if we adjust the smoothing or whatever, it's going to affect that. Bring this down just a little bit and shift these over. So under instance parameters here, you can see that we can adjust the number of bricks across and height, like how many there are vertically. And also under scale, which is here, we can adjust the size of our bricks, right? Something like this. All right, so what I'm going to do is just crank these up till they're a little bit closer. And then let's see, if we go back to our shape here, we can increase the size of these just a little bit. We don't want them random, we want them pretty good. And that's what this is doing here. I kind of want to adjust, let's see if we adjust our, let's go to our initial shape node and see if we adjust the scale on Y a little bit. So I click back on this. I'm just trying to get it so it fits a little bit better. So if we increase our size on Y going this way, and then our size on X, we jump back into tiling here. I think that looks a little bit better. That's looking more like it. We adjust our amount on X that way. Now there's little to no tiling. Alright, now the last thing I want to do is offset each brick. So let's go to position and look for offset. And if I type in 0.5 here, you'll notice it cuts off directly in the middle. So something like this. Another thing I'm going to do is copy and paste this, and then in our roughness, I'm going to connect it there, and then I'm going to paste it again, and in our metallic, place it in there. Now the reason for this is, if I adjust this, you can see I can now have a little bit more control over the specularity and reflection of my of those parameters, right? So if I make this completely white here, and or I make this one completely white, and I make this one completely black, you can see I get a mirror. So I want the tiles to be a little bit reflective, but not more like metal. So something about the halfway point for each one. So something like that. Now they're just shiny enough where they're not going to be off-putting. Oops. And I know I'm getting to 8 minutes. I'm going to wrap this up very soon. Okay, so I'm going to bring all of this down here. Now I need to convert this black and white image to a normal map. So I'm just going to type in normal. And if we drag this in here, you can see it's created that normal for us, and I plug it in. You can see there's our normal map. Now, what we're going to want to do is essentially adjust that grout too. But let's go ahead and see how this looks inside of Unity. Well, actually, let's create the grout, and then we'll plug it all together. All right, so what I'm going to do is highlight this, hit Control C, and then Control V, and bring it up here into where my color is. Now, you can see here that here's our tile generator, right? And I'm going to break this, and I'm going to hit space, and I'm going to add a blend node. And for my foreground color, I want it to be this white area. So I'm going to plug this in here, and you'll see now it's back to white. Now, what I want to do here is this thing is going to operate as my opacity map, right? For the for the uniform color or my foreground color. Actually, you know what? Let me break this for a second. So we're going to blend between two nodes. Now this is going to form a mask, which means only the white area, when I plug this into here, you'll notice now, here, let me plug this in so you can see what I'm talking about. Only the white areas are masked out. Anything that's not white is black. See that? So we're getting a little closer. So that's kind of controlling that. Now, this is still also controlling, now, what we really should do is duplicate this and use it twice so that we don't have to redo these nodes, but I just want to show you sort of how they work. So you're going to have to remember, for example, like if you don't like how thick this tile is, if I go back in here and I go in here and I adjust the scaling, right? So, so here's the size, right? It says 0.83. Notice as I'm adjusting this on the x-axis, it's kind of screwing it up. And then if I want to make it bigger on the y, I'm like, okay, well this is, I'll just do 0.8 here and then 0.8 here. I've got to remember to go into this one and type 0.8 and zero point 0.8 so it adjusts right. You know what I mean? But there are better ways and more efficient ways. I covered that in the brick video, but it can get a little bit confusing if you're starting out with Designer. Like you can create another blend node here and then blend both and just duplicate, or grab the node and copy it into both. So that's really it. And like I said before, if what's really neat is if you adjust this, you can adjust how matted you want the bricks to be, or this is more about matting. That's the reflection, and this is your reflection rather. So you can adjust how reflective you want it or what have you. So let's really quickly just actually I'm going to save this as well as white tile background because I want to use those again. And then you'll notice up here it says add a new substance, add a new material, and then here it says save and open selected package. You have all this cool stuff. We can push the selected elements. We can export to substance share, which is a good way of getting your name out there. But what I want to do right now is publish it as an SBSAR file, and then I'm going to go to my desktop, or I'm sorry, documents, the Aidemars final project folder, which I thought was in here. Actually, I think it's in my game folder. Oh no, here we go. Assets, and it's sort of weird. Let me make sure that this is the right one. New folder E. Let me pause it really quick. Okay, so it is in here, Aidemars final project. It's a duplicate of the file, so sorry about that. And then inside of 3D models objects, I'm going to make a new folder here and call it kitchen backsplash. And then save that. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And what's interesting now is when you go into Unity, if I go into that 3D models, kitchen, not there, 3D models, objects, we don't have an actual kitchen backslash object, like a 3D model. We just have this. So we're going to have to, in the next video, I'll review how to get SBSAR files into here. We're going to have to get a package from the asset store.